That's true.
Okay, learning Nishmas Mindel, Mariam Bas Kalman Ruvain, Nisham Shaban Aliyah. The last thing we discussed was two opinions. We had Rav Elazar, Rav Yossi, who said that that askara, this terrible punishment, this terrible type of death, which starts in the stomach, moves to the throat, and goes to the mouth, is caused by lashon hara. And we had. And fine. That was his opinion. The Gemara wanted to know when he said this, Ibailahu. So the Gemara asked, we're about 4 lines down, last word on the line, Ibailahu. Rav Elazar, Rav Yossi, when he said lashon hara kamar, af al lashon hara nami kamar. Did he say it's caused by lashon hara? Was he saying also caused by lashon hara? But he greased the Tanakama in that brisa who said it was caused by meiser, right? So again, the brisa started off Tana Rabbanan. At the end of Lamed Gimel Amud Aleph, it said that askara is caused from meiser. Then Rav Elazar, Rav Yossi came along and said it's caused by lashon hara. The question is, was he saying it's caused by lashon hara? Or was he saying also lashon hara, but agreeing to the Tanakama? Okay, now we're going to learn a very, very famous story, some famous stories. Let's say it's a Tashmak. When our sages left Yerushalayim and came to the vineyards of Yavne, okay, the yeshiva called Keren B'Yavne, why it's called a vineyard is Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai, right? There's the famous Gemara of Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai as he had a request of the Roman general to spare Yavne v'chachameha. He was besieging Yerushalayim, and he said, "Listen, I know you're going to destroy Yerushalayim, I know you're going to destroy the Beis Hamikdash, but at least give me Yavne and its sages." And when they got there, the Roman general agreed. But what they did is that they set up like a keren. A keren is a vineyard, and they set up the seats like a vineyard. Now, the truth is, this was just a trick. It was a trick because, in truth, what they were doing, in addition to yeshiva there, they were also setting up a Sanhedrin. They're also setting up a court. But the Romans would not allow any official institution because they would see that as usurping their authority. And so the way they tricked them was by not setting up, a typical court would set up in a semicircle, and therefore that's why it's emphasized that it's a keren that was set up by like a vineyard. It was a way of deceiving the Romans that they would still have a court functioning there, but they would sit differently as a vineyard as a way of ensuring that they could still do it with, under the radar. Okay, fine. But the bottom line is they come to Keren B'Yavne. Hayashim Rabbi Yehuda, Rav Elazar, Rav Yossi. Rav Elazar, Rav Yossi is the man that we're trying to clarify about, right? He was the one who said lashon hara. We're going to come back, so just keep his name in mind. Rav Shimon. So these 3 sages were there. Nishal Shela Zu b'fneim, and they asked this following question: Makazu, this sickness of askara, mipnei ma maschos b'fnei me'ayim v'gemeres b'peh. Why does it start in the stomach and finishes by the mouth? So Nana Rav Yehuda, Rav Eli, Rosh Hamadar B'Mechal Makom V'Amar, Rav Yehuda, the son of Eli, who was always the first speaker in every single place. He answered first. Now, the Gemara later on is going to explain why he was the first one to speak in every single situation. In other words, sometimes you give this person the opportunity, this person the opportunity. Rav Yehuda ben Eli is the one who speaks first everywhere. We'll see why. Okay, even though the kidneys advise, okay, this is in the ancient world, they saw the kidneys being the source of wisdom. Okay, v'leiv maven, and the heart understands, v'lashon mechatech, and the tongue articulates the words, pegomer, the mouth, and finishes it. So the idea is that it starts in the stomach, it starts by the kidneys, which starts to advise us, and then it moves through the heart, it moves through the tongue, and ultimately ends through the mouth. And that is the idea of askara. That is a reflection of askara. We start with lashon hara, we think about it, and then we start to articulate it, and then we say it, and that is why askara affects us in the same way. Now, Rav Elazar, Rav Yossi, Rav Elazar, Rav Yossi responded, because people eat non-kosher things. Ask the Gemara, is that true that eating non-kosher things causes askara? There's no indication anywhere in the Torah that askara is caused by such things. Rather, eat things which are not tithe, which you don't have meiser taken from. So what do we see? Rav Elazar, Rav Yossi is telling us that the reason people get askara is because of maestros. So what do we see? Again, we start off with the question: is it because of lashon hara alone, or is it also? And the answer is also. But now let's finish the Gemara. Nana Rav Shimon Amar Ba'avon Bittul Torah says askara comes because of Bittul Torah. Amar Lo Nashim Mechichu. They start arguing with Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon says caused by Bittul Torah. Says Nashim Mechichu. Women also get askara, and in their time, women were not learning Torah. So how could it be? If it's Bittul Torah, they don't have a chiyuv, they don't have an obligation to learn Torah. Even nowadays, the obligation for women is different than that of a man. So why are you telling me that women that it's caused by Bittul Torah? We see women getting askara. So answers the Gemara as ba'aleim. Maybe they themselves are not being Mevatel Torah, but maybe they cause their husbands to not learn. In which case, they'd also be guilty of Bittul Torah. Nachar Mechichu. Okay, what about non-Jews? What are you going to say about them? They also get askara. Shemevatel Es Yisrael. They cause Jews to neglect Torah study. Okay, so he says Tinokos Yochichu. Children will prove you wrong. Shemevatel Es Avim. They cause their parents to not study. Okay, so there's the Gemara Tinokos Shebeis Rabban Yochichu. What about young children? Children who are not so young that they deter their parents. They get in the way of their parents. But mature young children, in different worlds, not nowadays, but basically young children who are learning in schools, and they are learning Torah. They're learning, first of all, and they're learning diligently. They're not distracting their parents, and yet sometimes, tragically, we see them get Askara. So here, a very important Gemara, Hasam, and this is one of the, I mentioned the Ramchal's Derech Hashem, where he discusses many reasons why bad things happen, and so here is another reason. This is an idea which was picked up by the Christians and they ran with it, but this says the Gemara. Rabbi Gorian Amar, Rabbi Gorian Mitem Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shemaya, Bisman Tzadikim Ador, Tzadikim Nispasim Alador. As long as they're righteous people in generation, they suffer for the sins of the generation. In other words, this notion that a person is able to suffer for the sins of others is a Jewish idea. Actually, it goes back to Moshe Rabbeinu, but that's another discussion. But the point is that that sometimes you have a tzaddik who suffers for the sins of the entire generation. Okay, Ein Tzadikim Ador, but if there are no really righteous people in the generation, Tinoko Shel Beis Rabban Nispasim Alador, then the children are going to get punished for the sins of the generation. In other words, children could die not for their own sins, but rather as a way of bringing mechila for the rest of the world. Okay, so if you understand that all of us are interconnected, that we don't have these individual lives, and rather we're all interconnected, so we understand that tzaddikim could sometimes suffer or die for the sins of the generation. So too could children die for the sins of the generation. We could ask about the fairness of such a thing. Longer discussion, but the point is that we see, and again, it goes back to another discussion we had, and that is that when we see someone suffering or someone, bad, terrible things happening to a person, even death, is it because of their sins? Not necessarily. There's a whole menu of options. On the contrary, it could be that they are so righteous, they don't have sins of their own, but they are somehow affecting mechila for the rest of the world, which is the loftiest of levels, and that is what we're seeing over here. I'm Rav Yitzchak Bar Zeiri, and we're now going to bring a pasuk to demonstrate this. I'm Rav Shimon ben Nizira. My crow, it's a pasuk that says this: Im lo sedi lach hayafa banashim. If you you, the fairest of women, do not know where to graze. This is from Shir Shir. We're going to read this in a few days. If you don't know where to graze, t'ilach ve'ikve hatzon. Go with the footsteps of the sheep. Okay, so and the end of the pasuk says, then you could graze your kids, meaning the goats, among the dwelling of the shepherds. So what is this? We say Gediyim hamushkanim al haroim. The kids are the ones that are collateral for the shepherds. So the end of the pasuk says that Gediyim, which are young goats, they rest shachain among the shepherds. They rest with the shepherds, but the word shachain also from the word mashkon, which is a collateral. So the idea is sheep. We say to the Jewish people, which is referred to as the maiden in the story of Shir Shirim, go to the shepherds, i.e. the avos, go to the great tzaddikim, but if you don't have them, you go to the gediyim, to the young kids, meaning the literal kids in English as well, in the sense that they are in place of, they are the mashkon of the shepherds. So we see that children sometimes suffer for the sins of the generation. Okay, Shema Mina, and now we go back to what we were trying to say. Af Lashon Hara Nami Kama Rav Yossi. Rav Yossi was saying Askar comes not only for Lashon Hara, but also for Lashon Hara, because here in this last little story, we see that he says Meiser is a reason, a person not taking Meisers, and Shurmos is also a reason that a person gets Askar Shema Mina. We indeed learn it from there. Okay, now we're going to come back to the question of why Rav Yehuda Bar Ilo is discussed as the one who always speaks first. Why does he always speak first? And a very, very, very famous Gemara. Why is Rav Yehuda called the one who speaks in every single place? Why does he speak first in every single place? So here goes the story. Yes, Rav Yehuda, Rav Yosef, Rav Shimon, because Rav Yehuda Bar Ilai, and Rav Yossi, and Rav Shimon Bar Yochai were sitting around. V'yasav Yehuda ben Gerim Gabayu, and a person by the name of Yehuda ben Gerim was sitting with them. Pasach Rav Yehuda Amar. Rav Yehuda started speaking. He said, "Kama na ma'asim shel umazu." How great are the Romans? Why? Tiknu shvakim. They made marketplaces. It's so convenient. Tiknu gesharim. They made bridges. Tiknu merchatzos. They made bathhouses. We have all these great things thanks to the Romans. Baruch Hashem. We love the Romans. Okay. Rav Yossi shasak. Rav Yossi didn't say anything. Now Rav Shimon Yochai Amar. Rav Shimon spoke up and says, "What are you talking about? Kol masha tiknu lo tiknu lo tzarich la'atzman." Don't praise them. They did this for themselves. Tiknu shvakim lo sheben zonos. They made marketplaces. They could have places where prostitutes are, so they could get easy access to prostitutes. They made bathhouses in order to beautify their own bodies, and they built bridges so they could access all the different places among the countryside so that they could collect taxes. It was all self-serving. Don't praise them. Halach Yehuda ben Gerim V'Sipur Devrem. Yehuda ben Gerim went and told, and went and told and shared what was said. So different ways of understanding this. Either Yehuda ben Gerim went directly to the Romans, although it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like Yehuda ben Gerim went and told others, but it was a private conversation. And the Chavetz Chaim actually quotes this, that a private conversation is also included in the laws of Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara is not only if I say something negative, but also if I tell you a secret, or you tell me a secret, and then you go ahead and tell someone else, that also is a form of Lashon Hara. So Yehuda ben Gerim went and said their words, finished but ultimately, like most secrets, they don't last very long, and eventually the Romans heard about it. Amru, and they said, Yehuda she'ila Yehuda, who went ahead and elevated the Romans because he spoke so positively about them, Yis'ala. He will also get elevated, and that's why he is the Rosh Hamadam Rechol Makom. The Romans instituted Rabbi Yehuda ben Eli because he spoke positively about the Romans. Whenever there's a gathering, Yehuda ben Eli speaks first. You must ensure that he speaks first because he is the most important person. He spoke positively about us. Okay. Yossi Shasak Yigla Tzipori. Yossi, who was quiet, he didn't speak up. He is sent into exile to a place called Tzipori. Shimon Shigina, Rav Shimon Yochai, who said something negative about the Romans, Yaharek, he should be executed. Azlahu of Rei Tashubei Madrasha. He and his son, Rav Elazar, Rav Shimon Yochai and his son Elazar, went and hid in the base medrash called Yoma having Maisilhu Devisu. Every day his wife would bring him Rifta V'chuza Demaya Chraki, bread, a pitcher of water, and they would eat Kitkivik Zerta. But eventually the Romans increased the bounty, increased the intensity of the decree. They really started looking for him. Amr Le'Levrei, he said to his son, Nashim Taitan Kalas Alan. He said he's afraid. His wife, basically she's going to be swayed. Imagine they start torturing her and start asking her, like, what's going on? And Dilma Mitzayr Le Megala Liatlan. While they torture her, she might reveal her hiding place. So Azu Tashim Bim Arsa. So they went and hid in a cave. Okay, the famous cave of Rabbi Shimon Yochai. It's Richashu. It's Richish Nisa, Ibari Lahu Charuva Ve'ina Demaya, and a carob tree and a spring of water were created. They took their clothes off, and they would sit covered in sand. Up to their neck, Kuliyama Garsi, and they would learn Torah together every day. When they had to daven, they would dress themselves in clothes and daven, and then they take their clothes off and go back in the sand, because they didn't want their clothes to wear out. They knew they'd be there for a very long time. Clothes wear out eventually, and so they only wore their clothes in minimal amounts when they would daven. They wanted to look appropriate for davening, but otherwise they would cover themselves in sand and they would study Torah that way. Isvu Tresar Shnei Bim Arsa. They were there for 12 years. And Eliyahu came one day and stood by the cave. Amar man lodi levar Yochai the mis Caesar. Who will tell Bar Yochai that Caesar has died, and therefore the decree that he made is over? So he heard this statement of Eliyahu. Why Eliyahu doesn't tell him directly, I'm not sure. Nafku and Rav Shimon Yochai went out. Chazu Inshi, people saw Chazi Inshi saw people. Dekak Harve Vizari. They're plowing a field and sowing crops. Amar. He says, what are these people doing? They're spending their time working. They're spending their time on fleeting things, and they're not spending their time on the world to come. Wherever they place their eyes, the people that they saw would immediately be incinerated. A voice came out from Shemaim and said, you came out of this cave to destroy my world? What are you doing? Go back to your cave. Hadar Azali went back. They stayed for 12 months. Amri, and they said to themselves, Mishpat Risham Behenim Shnei Matzar Chodesh. The people in Gehenim, the longest that you have punishment for in Gehenim is 12 months, right? So therefore, so they assumed, they said it must be that we probably could leave, because even though Hashem said go back, the longest that a negative decree is last for is 12 months. And there, a voice came out from Shemaim and said, go out from your cave. Okay, interesting. The first time is Eliyahu, the second time is a Baskal. Okay, something to think about. Okay, Nafku, they went out. It's called Heichadav Machi Rebbe Lazar. Wherever his son Rebbe Lazar would look, Havo Master of Shimon, and he would destroy things with his fiery gaze. Rav Shimon would now heal it. Okay, so now we see Rav Shimon has kind of evolved. Okay, Amr Lo, he said, Beni Daila Olam Aniva Atzi. He says, don't worry. He says it's true that they're not doing the best of things, but it's enough in the world. You and I could sustain the world through our Torah learning, through our mitzvos. Don't worry about it, okay? It was Friday afternoon, it was getting late. They saw an old man. He was clutching two myrtle branches, right? He was running. He's running home. As it got to Bein Hashmashas, they stopped him and said, Hanach Lamalach, why do you have these? He said, Shabbos, for Shabbos. Rav Shimon said, okay, but why not just one? He said, one for Zachar, one for Shamar. Rav Shimon turns to his son and says, look how much mitzvos Yasef Datayu, and then they were both appeased. Okay, I'll come back to this story in a moment. Shamar Pinchas ben Yair Chasani, or Pinchas ben Yair, who was the son-in-law of Shimon, heard this. Some say he was actually the father-in-law, but one way or another, he went out to greet him. They went together to the bathhouse. Havika Arich Le Levisre, and he was massaging his flesh. He saw that there were cracks in his flesh, in his skin. In other words, he was severely damaged because of this long time that he was staying in this cave. Havika Bachi. So Pinchas ben started crying because and the tears came from his eye, and they caused Rav Shimon to cry out. In other words, his skin was all parched, his skin was all broken because of staying in this cave in the sun, away from the lights, etc. And when he was crying, it was going into his skin and it was burning him. Okay, so Amar Lo, Pinchas ben Yair said, "Woe is to me that I've seen you like this." Amar Lo, Rav Shimon said, "You're fortunate you've seen me like this. You're not seeing me like this. You will not have found within me such things." What is he talking about? What he's talking about is the fact that he gained incredible insight into Torah knowledge. According to our tradition, this is where he actually penned, where he authored the Zohar. The Zohar is written according to some traditions by Rav Shimon bar Yochai, and this was done in the cave. So let's just understand the story a little bit more. It would seem like the idea of understanding the whole idea of the Zohar is understanding things on a much deeper level, not seeing things superficially, seeing things for what they really are, and therefore in the cave, when he's away from civilization, he's able to really think deeply, think in a critical fashion, and see the depths of what really is, and therefore he's able to develop the Zohar. Perhaps the idea is that when he comes out of the cave and he sees people doing things, he's also able to see past the superficiality, and that's it's not coincidental that he's so critical. In other words, it's the same insight, the same ability to penetrate and see the depths of the world around us, which is the Zohar. So too, he sees a person, and maybe you look like you're doing things for the right reason, but he sees past it. He sees people, and he's seeing people are just self-serving and not doing things for the right reason, and he sees right past it. The resolution when he comes out and he sees this person running and he sees these two myrtle branches. On the one hand, we could have 12 months earlier would have seen the person who said, you're just getting the myrtle branches for your own self-serving purpose. You're saying you're doing it for Shabbos. It's like, I need to get like the best, most delicious food in the world. Why are we doing Kavod Shabbos? Kavod Shabbos, you're doing it because it's just an excuse for you to have some good food, right? In other words, he could easily see right past it, but the development of Shemar Chai is to say that there's also that he's able to see and appreciate that there are levels, and we can also appreciate that, yes, on the deepest level, maybe I'm doing it for self-serving purposes, but there's also a level where I'm doing it for altruistic purposes, right? For all of us, right? There's a part of us which is perhaps doing things not for the right reasons, but sometimes, but on a different level, we're also doing things even on a positive level as well, for a positive reason, and that's Rav Shimon bar Yochai's resolution that yes, he's able to see the depths, able to see critically, but also able to appreciate things that are done on a more basic level as well, and that's how he's able to emerge from the cave. Okay, and then the Gemara concludes by telling us how Rav Shimon bar Yochai developed in his learning to make kara ki have maksh Rav Shimon bar Yochai kushya. When Rav Shimon bar Yochai would ask a question, have mafark le Pinchas ben Yair tracer peruke. Pinchas ben Yair would have 12 answers. Lasof, after coming out of the cave, Kevin Makshur Pinchas ben Yair kusha. When Pinchas ben Yair would have a question, and mafark le Rav Shimon bar Yochai answering Rabbi Peruke, Rav Shimon bar Yochai would respond to him with 24 answers. So we see the incredible development of Rav Shimon bar Yochai. Amar Hovis Izrichish Nisa Ezel Askin Milsa. Because a miracle happened to me, I want to go and do something for the benefit of the community. What this means is, we saw earlier in a Gemara that when something good happens to you, you have to be scared, like Rav Yaakov, like Yaakov, right? Because that means that your merits were perhaps taken, right? Even if a good thing happens to you, you want to be thankful. At the same time, maybe it took your merits. So Rav Shimon bar Yochai wants to do what he wants to do is say, hey, something good happened to me. I want to use it as a catalyst to do something good, and therefore it doesn't have to be just pure merits. It's something which something good happened to me, but I use that moment to bring more good into the world, and therefore maybe I could still hold on to the merit that I had previously. Okay, so what did it say? As it says, we learn this actually from Yaakov. Yaakov Shalom. Yaakov, after encountering Esav, came to the city intact. V'amarav, Rav said, Shalom begufo, he was intact with his body. Shalom amono, he still was wealthy. Shalom teraso, he still had his Torah knowledge. Vayichan es pnei ha'ir. It says he camped before the city, but it's a funny terminology. So Amarav, matbea tikin lahem. He made a new. What does it mean? Pnei ha'ir, the face of the city. So the idea of a face. Where do you typically see faces in the ancient world? On a coin. There, Yaakov came along and he matbea tikin lahem. He made a new coin for them. The idea being that when you have your own currency, it typically, a country which is not doing well economically, they typically borrow currency from another country. But a city which has their own currency, a country that has its own currency, is a sign of stature. So he helped them out. He went ahead and he made coins for that city. Shmuel Amar, Shvakim Tik Lahem, he made marketplaces for them. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Marchatzos Tik Lahem, he made bathhouses for them. One way or another, Yaakov expressed his both his gratitude for the miracles that happened to him, but also as a way of mitigating the credit that may have been taken from him for the Mines, and that's where Rav Shimon Yochai learned his thing. Amar. So Rav Shimon Yochai wanted to do something good. Amar, he said, Ika is there something in this community that needs helping, improvement? Amar lei, Ika duchta de isbe fake tuma. There's a place where it's uncertain if there's tuma here. Ve'is lahu tsar lechanim lafuke. Lakufe, and therefore Kohanim can't walk around. They don't know. Am I allowed to walk here? Am I allowed to walk there? And Kohanim stay away from this area entirely. That's a big pain. So Amar of Shimon Bar Yochai said, "Ika inish diyada it is chazik hachatar." Is there anyone here who knows where there was Tara? Is there someone who could help me? Amar Leah Saba, a certain elderly person came along. He says, "Kan kids ben zakei tur misei truma." I remember that Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai used to cut a certain type of item that was truma in this place, in this specific location. Meaning he points to a certain location. He said, this is a location that Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai established as a place which is tar. Avadiu nami hachi. Shimon Yochai, he started there, but then he continued. Kol heichel davikasha, wherever the ground was hard, tare. He said it's tar. Why? Why would a hard ground be tar? Hard to dig, right? Meaning, presumably there wasn't some fresh ground. It means someone was just buried there. Someone was just, was buried there. Wherever it was soft, Tzaina, he marked it off as Tameh because you could assume that there may have been graves in that place. Okay, so basically he went ahead and now he showed this place is Tar, this place is Tameh. Famously, the Arizal did the same thing, according to tradition, the Arizal did the same thing in Tzfat, but basically goes ahead and shows this place is Tar, this place is Tameh. Fine. Amra Saba, this elderly person who helped him out then said, Tir ben Yochai Beis Kvaros. Look, Rav Shimon ben Yochai made a cemetery tahar. He goes ahead and he turns around and he says, Rav Shimon Yochai messed up our whole place. He made a cemetery, a place that's tummy, he made it tahar. Amar lo. Rav Shimon Yochai said, if you weren't with me, or if you're with me, but you weren't one of those who helped out, Yafet Omer, fine. You want to have criticism, you want to have a machlokas l'shem shemayim saying that it was too lenient, I'm cool with that. That's fine. Okay, Yafat Omer. Then you're saying fine. But you're with us. And you were part of the team that did this. Right? If you're part of the team, Yomer, they're going to say, even prostitutes braid each other's hair. Okay, what does that mean? What that means is that they're in competition with one another. They're all trying to look more beautiful than the next, and yet it's common decency. They help each other out a little bit, right? They help each other out. The Mefarshim explain it's actually beneficial for them because if there's many beautiful people there, women there, then it actually causes the prices to rise. Okay, but the point is, it's common decency to help each other out. And you, what do? And Torah scholars shouldn't help each other out. In other words, what you're doing is such a chil Hashem that it's not like you're having an honest machlokas. If you really felt like I did something wrong, great. But you were with me when we did this. And even prostitutes help each other out. Talmidei Chacham are not going to help each other out. What a disgrace. Rav Shimon Yochai looked at him, and the man died. Okay, Rav Shimon Yochai still had his laser eyesight and still could kill them. Okay, Nafik L'Shuka, then he went to the marketplace. Chaz Yehuda ben Gerim. He saw Yehuda ben Gerim. Again, that's the guy who went and caused this whole entire story to happen. Amar, Rav Shimon Yochai said, Adain Yishli Zeh Ba'olam. This guy's still alive? Nasam Einav, he looked at him, Vaso Gel Shal Tzamas, and he made him into a pile of bones. Okay. Whew. Okay. Anyway, a lot of takeaways from this Gemara, but also not to get in the way of Rav Shimon Yochai. And have a great day. We'll pick up tomorrow.